Hello everyone, I hope you're settling in comfortably, maybe lying down, maybe sipping on something warm, and letting the world around you fade just a little, because today we're going to wander back to a time so distant it almost feels like a dream, yet strangely familiar. The Middle Ages, a world of bustling towns, shadowy forests, and trades and jobs that you could never imagine existing today. A world where people worked with their hands, their voices, and sometimes their very lives to carve out a place in the order of things. Before we dive into the rhythm of this old world, I have to ask, where are you listening from, and what hour is it where you are? It's fascinating to imagine all the different corners of the earth where this story might reach, whether it's the quiet hum of midnight in some sleepy town, the golden glow of late afternoon, or the restless energy of morning somewhere far away. Every place has its own time, its own way of experiencing the world. And yet here you are, listening to tales of people who lived hundreds of years ago, doing work we could hardly recognize today. Imagine, for a moment, a bustling medieval market street. You can hear the clatter of wooden carts on cobblestones, the shouts of merchants calling out their wares, the occasional bray of a donkey or the squawk of a chicken that's just escaped its coop. The smells are overwhelming, freshly baked bread mingling with the tang of herbs and the earthy aroma of livestock, mixed with smoke from the hearths of nearby homes. In this world, professions were not merely jobs. They were identities, passed down through families or acquired through years of apprenticeship, and many of them have vanished completely from the world we know today, leaving only traces in dusty manuscripts or curious museum exhibits. Take, for instance, the role of the knocker-upper, a profession that sounds more like a fairy tale than a real job. Long before alarm clocks could jolt someone from slumber, townsfolk relied on human alarm clocks. The knocker-upper would move from house to house with a long stick, tapping on bedroom windows until the inhabitants awoke on time to start their laborious days. Imagine the patience and precision required to wake dozens of people without breaking a window or causing chaos on the narrow, crowded streets. And yet, this was essential, because life in medieval towns demanded punctuality in a way that modern conveniences have made almost obsolete. Meanwhile, the Gong farmer had a completely different and far less glamorous task. These individuals were entrusted with emptying the contents of privies and cesspits, a job so hazardous and malodorous that they were legally required to work at night and were often shunned by polite society. Despite the grim nature of their work, their role was crucial for the sanitation of towns, preventing outbreaks of disease that could sweep through densely populated areas. It's a stark reminder that in every era, some of the most important contributions come from labor that is neither celebrated nor glamorous, and yet without it, civilization itself could falter. Then there were the leech collectors, wandering the marshes and rivers with small pails, seeking out these creatures for the bloodletting practices that were once considered medical miracles. Leeches were believed to balance the humors in the body, curing everything from headaches to fevers, and their harvest was a delicate process, requiring knowledge of where to find them and how to handle them safely. Families often depended on the income from leech collection, and the job carried both risk and superstition, as marshes were thought to be haunted by spirits or to harbor creatures more dangerous than leeches themselves. The town crier played a very different role, yet equally essential as the human voice of news, proclamations, and warnings. In an age before newspapers, when literacy was limited, town criers would walk the streets ringing a bell, announcing new laws, market days, or the arrival of important visitors. Their booming voices carried far, and their presence was both reassuring and commanding, a reminder that information was a currency as valuable as gold. And even among these strange professions, there were nuances that spoke volumes about medieval life. The sheep shearer, for instance, who worked in rhythm with the seasons, knowing exactly when to trim the wool so that it would not harm the sheep yet yield the best quality for clothing and trade. Every snip of the scissors was calculated, every movement perfected through repetition and intuition. Or the pillow plumper, tasked with ensuring that every bed in a wealthy household was inviting and comfortable, laboring with feathers and fabric in a way that would today seem almost luxurious but was, at the time, considered essential domestic work. Food, entertainment, and leisure wove seamlessly into these professions. Workers ate what was available: bread, cheese, root vegetables, pottage, occasionally meat if fortune allowed, and sometimes shared communal meals in long halls or around hearths. Entertainment could be impromptu, from minstrels wandering the streets to tales told by firelight in humble cottages, with news, gossip, and legend blending together in a steady stream of human experience. People laughed, argued, celebrated festivals, and observed rituals that we now only read about, their lives punctuated by seasons, work, and the rhythms of their communities. And amidst all this, there was the hum of constant motion, the undercurrent of stories untold, of struggles unseen, and of joys small yet significant, a world full of life, color, and human endeavor that vanished gradually as time marched forward, leaving only echoes of its peculiar and fascinating trades. Every profession carried its own set of secrets, superstitions, and challenges, shaping the society that we now consider history, yet still whispering lessons about the value of work, ingenuity, and perseverance. As night fell over the cobbled streets, lanterns flickering in the wind, the hum of the town slowed, yet the work of some professions never truly ceased. Among these nocturnal laborers were the night soil men, relatives in function to the Gong farmers but operating in a more organized system, carting human waste from urban areas to fertilize distant fields. It was a job that demanded endurance, secrecy, and an almost imperceptible grace, for one misstep could mean disaster, both for the worker and the community he served. The faint, earthy scent of their cargo mingled with the damp chill of the evening air, leaving traces that only those attuned to the rhythms of the town could detect. In parallel, whipping boys walked a more delicate and peculiar path, accompanying young nobles and taking punishment in place of those high-born children whose privilege barred them from corporal discipline. This arrangement was a strange form of mentorship and companionship, requiring loyalty, resilience, and an understanding of the unspoken hierarchies that governed courtly life. Imagine the complexity of emotions, the mixture of fear, envy, and camaraderie, as these boys shared lessons in obedience, etiquette, and sometimes survival, all while enduring blows meant for another, living in the shadow of both danger and opportunity. The sin-eaters were even stranger, walking at the edge of society, performing rituals to absorb the sins of the deceased through the symbolic act of consuming food over a corpse. It was a deeply spiritual, mysterious role, filled with superstition and ritual, yet essential in the beliefs of communities that feared the afterlife and sought a tangible means to protect themselves from spiritual repercussions. Families would pay for this service, both out of fear and hope, and the sin-eater carried the burden of collective guilt, their life intertwined with the invisible threads of morality and tradition. Meanwhile, the rat-catchers traversed alleyways and granaries, their traps and nets their constant companions. Disease was a persistent specter, and controlling vermin was not merely a matter of cleanliness but of survival. Some rat-catchers became local legends, known for their uncanny ability to track the smallest movement, to lure the craftiest rodents from hiding. Their tools, sharp hooks, steel traps, and trained ferrets, were extensions of their skill, each successful catch a small victory in the ongoing battle against illness and decay. In wealthier homes, fletchers labored over arrows, painstakingly shaping shafts and feathers to create projectiles that would fly true in battles, hunts, or tournaments. Every arrow required precision, understanding of materials, and an intuitive knowledge of physics that we now learn in classrooms but was then transmitted through hands-on apprenticeship. Their work supported both sustenance and strategy, weaving together survival and the pursuit of glory, for an arrow could feed a family or decide the fate of a conflict miles away. The culinary arts also gave rise to odd yet vital roles. Spice traders, for instance, were not mere sellers of flavor but curators of wealth and status. They navigated treacherous routes by land and sea, dealing with pirates, storms, and treacherous passes, ensuring that cinnamon, saffron, and pepper reached tables in distant courts. Each transaction carried danger, intrigue, and prestige, as spices were not only luxury but also a subtle marker of influence, trade networks, and sometimes power. The aroma of a well-spiced stew or roasted fowl could signify a household's prosperity, linking simple pleasure to the grand economy of empires. Even entertainment had its obscure crafts. Jesters and fools were entertainers, yes, but their role was intertwined with politics, social commentary, and even survival. Beyond the laughter and acrobatics, jesters could speak truths others dared not. Disguised as humor, their insights slipping past the scrutiny of authority because their position allowed it. Many jesters were philosophers in disguise, keen observers of courtly machinations, their wit sharpened by necessity and danger. They were memory keepers of stories, news, and scandals, weaving history and performance without ever putting it to parchment. Yet some of the oddest professions existed purely out of necessity, such as dog whippers, tasked with controlling stray animals that threatened markets, children, or livestock. Equipped with long sticks or whips, they patrolled streets and alleys, often in collaboration with town criers, ensuring that chaos remained at bay. Their job was as physical as it was symbolic, a reflection of the medieval struggle to balance human ambition with the untamed world around them. And all the while, ordinary citizens lived amidst these roles, their daily lives rich with textures of work, food, leisure, and ritual. Markets hummed with bargaining voices, children played in the dirt, and artisans hammered, sewed, or carved, leaving traces of their labor that would echo for centuries. Meals were simple yet nourishing, hearty stews, bread baked in communal ovens, pottage with whatever vegetables and herbs were in season, yet the joy of sharing these foods, of tasting a spiced delicacy or a fresh pastry, carried profound cultural significance. Festivals punctuated the year, marking harvests, saints' days, and moments of communal relief from the monotony of survival. Stories passed orally, weaving myth and reality together, mixing warnings with moral lessons, and sometimes slipping secrets of craft and trade into otherwise playful narratives. The rhythm of life in the Middle Ages was a tapestry of work, belief, and simple pleasure, where even the most peculiar professions had meaning and place, and where every individual, regardless of station, contributed to the pulse of society. Every trade, no matter how obscure, held stories of ingenuity, danger, humor, and resilience, creating a world both alien and strikingly human to our modern eyes. Even as dawn broke over the town, spilling pale light across uneven rooftops and misty streets, life in the medieval world stirred with relentless energy. The air carried the sense of baking bread, wet stone, and animals roused from their night-long rest, mingling with the metallic tang of forges already working, as blacksmiths hammered iron with rhythmic precision, sparks flying like tiny stars in the dim morning light. But beyond the obvious trades, there were roles so unusual that it's almost hard to imagine them existing at all, let alone occupying central positions in communities. Take the Chamberlain of the Birds, for example, a title that might sound whimsical but was serious work. Some noble households kept aviaries of exotic birds, and the Chamberlain's task was to maintain their health, feed them properly, and ensure their songs were always present to charm guests in stately halls. The position required knowledge of diets, flight patterns, and breeding habits, and even the slightest mistake could end in tragedy, a lost bird or a ruined reputation. Not far from such stately tasks, the Fool's Keeper, an entirely different yet equally peculiar role, attended to jesters and entertainers, ensuring that their costumes, props, and instruments were in perfect condition. Imagine being responsible for the delicate balance between humor, danger, and dignity, maintaining an entertainer who could mock kings one day and amuse children the next, all while understanding the precise timing that could sway moods or even prevent scandal. Meanwhile, in towns and villages, the sin harborer quietly walked unseen, a person hired to perform rituals that were meant to cleanse households of misfortune or curses, often overlapping with the work of midwives, wise women, or herbalists. This role combines superstition, psychology, and community reliance on ritualized action, demonstrating how belief and labor intertwined in everyday medieval life. People believed that a careful mix of herbs, spoken words, and minor sacrifices could influence outcomes, whether in childbirth, harvest, or local politics. Trades and tasks could be physically taxing as well. Torchbearers, for instance, were responsible for lighting streets and guiding late travelers, carrying flames in the rain, wind, or snow, often working through nights that could be perilously long in winter months. Their flickering torches were more than mere light. They were beacons of safety, symbols of civic order, and, in a world without electricity, indispensable for any traveler navigating the dark and unpredictable paths between towns. Even entertainment required meticulous labor behind the scenes. The mask maker, crafting intricate wooden or leather masks for pageants, festivals, and theatrical events, shaped not only faces but perceptions. A mask could turn a nobleman into a god, a peasant into a demon, a ceremony into spectacle, transforming imagination into tangible reality. Each carving, painting, and attachment of strings or ribbons demanded skill, attention to detail, and a deep understanding of symbolism, for masks carried meaning, history, and superstition all at once. On the more practical side of life, water porters carried barrels of fresh water to households, kitchens, and sometimes entire districts. Though seemingly simple, their work was crucial, especially in cities where wells were scarce and clean water was a lifeline against disease. Imagine balancing heavy wooden barrels through narrow streets, aware that a single spill could ruin a family's morning or a merchant's business, and yet doing so day after day, season after season, without complaint. Even the markets had their unseen specialists. Muck inspectors, for instance, monitored the quality of fertilizer, dung, and soil amendments, ensuring that fields received the correct mix for optimal crop growth. Their knowledge of decomposition, moisture content, and agricultural cycles was surprisingly scientific, though framed in the context of practical trade rather than formal education. Their judgments could influence the prosperity of entire communities, linking what might seem like mundane labor to survival, wealth, and even regional politics. And amid all these professions, people lived, ate, celebrated, and worried. Meals were shaped by the seasons and social standing. A peasant's breakfast might be a thick oat porridge with whatever herbs or milk were available, while a merchant or noble might enjoy bread, cheese, smoked meats, or exotic fruits if trade permitted. Festivals brought music, dance, and games to the streets, from mock battles to animal fights, as well as theatrical performances. Stories, riddles, and songs were shared in taverns, kitchens, and around fires, each narrative a thread in the larger fabric of communal memory, teaching lessons, offering warnings, or simply entertaining while preserving the rhythm of oral history. Some professions combined danger and spectacle. The fire dancer, often hired for celebrations or religious festivals, risked burns and smoke inhalation as they spun torches and flares, mesmerizing crowds while maintaining constant awareness of their surroundings. Their performance was both art and ritual, a temporary bending of the natural world to human will, thrilling audiences while serving as a stark reminder of mortality, skill, and courage. Even the overlooked corners of medieval life reveal wonder. The bell founder, for instance, melted and cast bronze for church and town bells, creating instruments that would mark time, signal warnings, and summon communities for centuries. Every hammer strike, every carefully measured alloy, demanded technical precision and deep intuition. Bells became part of the communal heartbeat, echoing across hills, forests, and rivers, embedding the labor of their creators into the very soundscape of civilization. And as you imagine all these roles, intertwined with daily life, rituals, festivals, meals, and the constant interplay of superstition and necessity, it becomes clear that medieval society was a complex ecosystem. Every profession, whether glamorous, grisly, or bizarre, contributed to the rhythm of existence, crafting a world that was at once fragile and enduring, structured and chaotic, human in ways that resonate even centuries later, teaching us that survival, ingenuity, and community are timeless. The sun had climbed higher now, spilling golden light over the thatched roofs and stone towers, but life in the medieval town did not slow. Children chased each other through alleys, their laughter mingling with the rhythmic pounding from workshops where artisans molded, hammered, and stitched objects that would define daily life. Among the less familiar trades was the Gong farmer's apprentice, a role inherited or learned by those who would eventually manage the city's waste removal systems. Apprentices were often young, their days long, their hands perpetually exposed to the stench and hazards of privies, yet they gained knowledge few others possessed, insights into sanitation, human behavior, and the subtle dynamics of a town that had to function despite the chaos of disease and overcrowding. The work was grueling and odorous, but it was also respected for its necessity, a reminder that even the most unpleasant labor could hold dignity and importance. Meanwhile, In wealthier households, the cupbearer held a position of quiet influence. Tasked with serving drinks to nobility while ensuring they were not poisoned, the cupbearer's role demanded vigilance, composure, and intelligence. It was a position of trust, sometimes entwined with intrigue, as families vied for favor and political maneuvering was as common over wine as it was at councils. One wrong move, one misread gesture, and a cupbearer could become both hero and scapegoat, their actions influencing outcomes far beyond the seemingly simple act of pouring drinks. In the streets, the almanac seller moved among markets and gatherings, offering calendars, astrological predictions, and practical advice for planting or traveling. Their books and parchments, often illustrated with intricate diagrams, guided peasants and nobles alike. People believed in the timing of stars, in luck influenced by celestial bodies, and the almanac seller was both educator and entertainer, weaving science, superstition, and hope into small, portable works of wisdom. Even commerce held strange, almost ceremonial roles. The salt watcher, for instance, oversaw the production, transport, and sale of salt, one of the most vital commodities of the age. Salt preserved food, influenced trade, and determined wealth. Watchers traveled with shipments, inspecting brine pans, checking for purity, and negotiating prices, often navigating rough terrain and political tension between regions. Salt could make or break a merchant's fortune, and the salt watcher's meticulous work ensured stability in a world where scarcity could have catastrophic consequences. Entertainment and ritual intersected in the work of bell ringers who climbed towering steeples and clock towers to announce time, mark ceremonies, or signal danger. Bells were not only practical, they carried cultural and spiritual significance, echoing across valleys and hills, tying communities together with shared sound. Ringing demanded physical strength, timing, and memory, for each pattern conveyed a specific message. Missing a beat or striking incorrectly could confuse villagers or disrupt the rhythm of festivals, linking precision to communal harmony. Some roles bordered on the bizarre yet were essential. The rat catcher might have been considered lowly, but they were invaluable during times when plague loomed. Armed with trained ferrets, traps, and keen observation, rat catchers safeguarded both food supplies and lives, navigating alleys, barns, and cellars with an intuition born of experience. Similarly, the whipping boy, whose life involved absorbing punishment meant for young nobles, lived in constant tension, pain and learning intertwined, a strange form of mentorship where loyalty and endurance were the only certainties. Life in town was not all labor, though. People found joy and sustenance in the simplest of moments. Markets were rich with smells and colors. Loaves of coarse brown bread stacked beside pastries dusted with sugar, apples glistening in the sun, fish freshly caught and still dripping with river water. Minstrels wandered, singing tales of heroes, battles, and romances, their melodies drifting into homes and taverns alike. Children played with carved wooden toys, improvised balls, or even shadow puppets cast on walls by candlelight, learning lessons about coordination, community, and imagination without even realizing it. Even food preparation created small, specialized professions. Pie makers and confectioners worked tirelessly in kitchens to provide not just sustenance but delight, crafting pastries, tarts, and sweetmeats that could impress nobles or sweeten a festival. The intricate designs, subtle flavors, and careful baking were a testament to skill and creativity, and the work required precision, intuition, and artistry. These creations could mark holidays, weddings, or religious events, their ephemeral nature contrasting with the lasting impact of a well-tended craft. And all this activity, laborious, precise, joyous, and dangerous, occurred under the watchful eyes of superstition and belief. Sin-eaters, midwives, and wise women wove ritual into daily life, addressing fears, hopes, and the unknown. Each profession, no matter how obscure, intertwined with human emotion, community structure, and the constant pursuit of survival, weaving a complex tapestry that held together the fabric of medieval society. It was a world of contrasts, filth and refinement, danger and humor, toil and artistry, a place where every role, no matter how strange or vanished today, had purpose, narrative, and resonance. As the afternoon sun warmed the cobblestones, The town seemed alive with movement and chatter, every alley and open square vibrating with the rhythm of daily life. Yet behind the obvious bustle lay professions so peculiar they might seem surreal to modern eyes, and each had its own stories, its own subtle dramas that unfolded quietly alongside the more visible rhythms of market trading and religious observance. Consider the dog whipper, a person whose role was to patrol streets, ensuring that stray dogs did not attack children, livestock, or disrupt market activity. Armed with long sticks, whips, and a certain authority granted by the town, the dog whipper moved with a mixture of precision and instinct, often collaborating with town criers or constables to maintain order, yet sometimes operating alone, navigating narrow alleys where danger could emerge from the shadows. In noble households, the page of the chambers performed tasks that combined service, observation, and learning. These young attendants delivered messages, managed keys, and ensured that lords and ladies had what they needed, all while absorbing lessons in etiquette, diplomacy, and survival in an environment where a misstep could result in public embarrassment or worse. Pages learned the hidden codes of household hierarchy, observing interactions that would later inform their own paths through life, blending mundane chores with subtle education in social navigation. The chimney sweep, another profession vital yet hazardous, climbed narrow flues and soot-lined passages to clear smoke passages for fireplaces, ensuring both warmth and safety. Their bodies bore the marks of constant exposure to smoke and grime, yet their knowledge of fire behavior, flue construction, and household mechanics was remarkable. The sweep's work intersected with domestic life, architecture, and safety, quietly preventing disasters while enabling families to maintain the warmth and comfort necessary for survival. Markets offered their own peculiar tasks. Hawkers and peddlers carried baskets of goods, shouting their wares, navigating crowded streets, and negotiating both price and perception. They sold everything from textiles to trinkets, spices to small livestock, their voices becoming part of the town's constant background hum. Success required charm, stamina, and an understanding of human behavior, for persuasion was as important as the goods themselves. And some roles straddled labor, entertainment, and spiritual life. Minstrels traveled widely, performing songs and stories that preserved history, morality, and culture. Their repertoires combined myth, rumor, and fact, and their tales often contained subtle commentary on the events of the day or the moral lessons embedded in local folklore. Listening to a minstrel, one might hear of distant battles, heroic deeds, or scandalous affairs, all intertwined with melodies that made the stories memorable and carried them far beyond the original audience. Even mundane household work could conceal complexity. Pillow fluffers and bed testers in wealthy homes ensured that sleep and rest were optimized for health and status. Pillows and mattresses were not merely comfort items. They were symbols of refinement, and the labor to maintain them involved careful attention to materials, hygiene, and presentation. Similarly, washwomen managed the constant flow of laundry for households and guilds, dealing with large volumes of linens, treating stains with herbal concoctions, and drying and ironing items using methods that required both skill and endurance. Some professions balanced artistry and utility. The cartographer meticulously recorded roads, rivers, and settlements, creating maps that were essential for travelers, merchants, and military leaders. Each line drawn represented careful observation, painstaking measurement, and an understanding of both geography and human movement. Maps were not only practical tools but objects of prestige, often displayed in noble houses as symbols of knowledge and power. The leech collector, returning once more in memory, reminds us of the blending of superstition and medicine. Leeches were harvested from marshes and rivers, carefully handled, and sold to apothecaries who believed in bloodletting as a cure for ailments ranging from headaches to fevers. The collector's life was tied to the seasons, the landscape, and the delicate task of balancing risk with the need for profit. Meanwhile, street performers juggled, tumbled, and enacted brief dramas in exchange for coins, often incorporating local news or gossip into their acts. Their performances were ephemeral, yet they carried knowledge, entertainment, and social commentary into spaces where illiteracy and distance from official proclamations might otherwise leave communities uninformed. Throughout all this activity, food and drink remained central. Taverns offered pottage, bread, and ale, sometimes flavored with herbs or honey, where townsfolk shared stories, argued, or celebrated minor victories. Festivals brought meat, pastries, and communal feasts, sometimes marked with dancing, masks, and pageantry that involved multiple trades, from bakers and brewers to carpenters, smiths, and costume makers, all working in tandem to create spectacle. Even in quieter moments, professions interwove with domestic and spiritual life. Almoners distributed charity, often food or money, to the needy, performing a role of moral and civic responsibility, ensuring that the flow of generosity maintained both social order and personal piety. Their work touched lives directly, balancing empathy, administration, and ritualized procedure in ways that influenced entire neighborhoods. As the afternoon waned and shadows stretched across the streets and fields, one begins to appreciate the complexity, interdependence, and sometimes strange beauty of these vanished roles. Each profession, whether glamorous, grisly, or seemingly trivial, carried stories, skills, and significance. They shaped rhythms of life, sustained communities, and created a world where survival, ingenuity, and culture were inseparable, a vivid tapestry of human endeavor that still echoes in the imagination even centuries later. As twilight approached and the long shadows stretched across the town, the quiet murmur of life shifted toward evening routines, but the intricate web of medieval professions continued to hum beneath the surface, invisible to the casual observer yet vital to the functioning of the community. Take the mudlark, for instance, a person who scoured riverbanks for anything of value that might have been discarded or lost. These individuals had a keen eye for coins, metalwork, pottery shards, or small artifacts washed up from the river's depths, and their discoveries, though modest, could make the difference between hardship and sustenance. Mudlarks became intimately familiar with tides, currents, and seasonal patterns, blending survival skills with a kind of scavenger's intuition. Meanwhile, the Gong farmer, returning in our memory of obscured roles, had apprentices who learned the delicate balance of night labor, hygiene, and discretion. These young workers carried heavy buckets through narrow streets, avoiding social scorn while maintaining the unseen foundation of sanitation. Their existence was a reminder that every society relies on tasks that are unpleasant but indispensable, and that even the lowliest labor can wield influence over life and death through the quiet diligence of daily work. In wealthier households, the herb gatherer provided a subtle but critical service, venturing into fields, forests, and meadows to collect medicinal plants, culinary spices, and fragrant herbs. Their knowledge of seasons, soil, and plant properties was vital, as these herbs could flavor a dish, heal a wound, or protect against disease. It was dangerous work, not only because of the terrain or wildlife, but also because misidentification could lead to poisoning or loss of livelihood. The herb gatherer's trade connected medicine, cooking, and folklore in ways that made them both revered and feared. Entertainment and ceremonial functions introduced further curious professions. Townsmen known as mummers performed masked plays in streets and halls, their dances and short dramas celebrating seasonal changes, telling myths, and sometimes subtly commenting on local politics. Their performances required rehearsal, costume creation, and a nuanced understanding of audience reaction, blending artistry, ritual, and social observation. Similarly, penners of guilds were responsible for keeping records, crafting lists, and creating documents that govern trades, apprenticeships, and obligations, providing structure to what might otherwise be chaotic social systems. Even daily survival relied on specialized roles. Water carriers, for instance, navigated streets and alleys with heavy barrels of fresh water, sometimes climbing several flights of stairs to deliver supplies. Their physical endurance was remarkable, and the precision required to avoid spilling precious cargo made their labor indispensable. Without them, homes, kitchens, and industries alike would have faltered, highlighting how professions we might consider minor were in fact central to medieval existence. The rat catcher, too, deserves further attention. These individuals often carried trained ferrets, nets, and traps into attics, barns, and cellars to control vermin populations that threatened both health and food security. During times of plague or famine, their work became literally life-saving, revealing how necessity and ingenuity intersected in ways that modern observers might overlook. Among the more ceremonial or esoteric roles, the chapel bell ringer or campanist required dexterity, rhythm, and a deep understanding of signaling systems. Bells announced curfews, marked religious observances, and warned of danger. Their patterns became ingrained in communal consciousness, creating a sense of structure and continuity in a world otherwise dominated by chance, labor, and survival. Even trades we consider mundane were intertwined with skill and ritual. Leather dressers and tanners transformed raw hides into durable clothing, shoes, and armor, applying techniques honed over generations. The process was odorous, hazardous, and labor-intensive, yet it supplied material essential for daily life, defense, and fashion alike. Each leatherworker held a repository of knowledge about tools, chemicals, and timing, turning what might appear crude into finely crafted, functional, and sometimes beautiful products. Meanwhile, social and moral roles carried significance too. Sin-eaters, revisited in whispered stories, absorbed guilt and misfortune from the dying, their labor both feared and sought after, showing how spiritual concerns intertwined with daily life. The town crier, whose voice carried proclamations, gossip, and urgent news across crowded streets, maintained social cohesion, influencing behavior with words alone. Without these communicators, towns could descend into confusion, mismanagement, or panic. And through it all, ordinary citizens experienced meals, festivals, and small joys alongside the labor of these obscure professions. Communal eating, seasonal celebrations, and public games offered relief and entertainment. Bread, pottage, roasted meats, and occasionally fruit or pastry sustained bodies, while music, storytelling, and playful competition nourished the spirit. The interplay of labor, ritual, survival, and festivity created a rhythm that structured days, weeks, and years, leaving behind an intricate cultural tapestry woven from countless tiny, often forgotten threads of human endeavor. Even in these brief glimpses, one can sense the remarkable variety, complexity, and interdependence of professions that no longer exist, each shaping life, society, and culture in subtle yet enduring ways. The Middle Ages were a world of unseen labor, peculiar customs, and constant adaptation, a time where every action mattered, every trade had purpose, and every person, regardless of status, contributed to the pulse of human civilization in ways that still echo centuries later. As evening deepened, casting long shadows across narrow streets and thatched rooftops, the town transformed into a quieter, yet no less intricate, web of life, where the work of vanished professions continued to shape survival and social order in ways both subtle and profound. Consider the Gong farmer, who once again reminds us of the hidden infrastructure supporting medieval sanitation. Their labor, often relegated to night hours, required not only physical strength but also tactical discretion, for these workers navigated alleys and privies while avoiding social stigma, performing a task essential to public health yet persistently invisible to those they served. Apprentices shadowed them, learning the techniques and rhythms that would sustain communities while keeping their own existence on the margins of society. In wealthier households, the cupbearers' vigilance was unmatched. Charged with delivering drinks safely to nobles, they watched for signs of poisoning, deception, or unrest. The role demanded intelligence, composure, and attention to detail, for one misstep could mean disaster. The cupbearer, though ostensibly a servant, wielded a subtle influence over life and death, blending loyalty with acute observation in a world where danger often arrived unnoticed in a goblet of wine. Meanwhile, the streets teemed with trades that balanced practicality and spectacle. Street performers, known for juggling, acrobatics, and storytelling, brought ephemeral entertainment, sometimes laced with social commentary or political critique, delivering news and lessons in disguise. Their performances, fleeting yet memorable, wove together humor, caution, and cultural knowledge, blending delight with subtle instruction in ways that modern observers rarely consider. Even survival itself demanded skillful and peculiar labor. Water carriers navigated alleys and stairways, balancing heavy barrels to provide homes and businesses with a lifeline of fresh water. Their endurance and precision were crucial, as a single spill could disrupt the day for families or entire workshops, revealing how even seemingly simple labor was deeply connected to community stability. Among the more esoteric roles, sin eaters continued to perform rituals that absorbed the moral burdens of the dying. Their work was both feared and sought, illustrating the medieval intertwining of superstition, belief, and practical necessity. While their acts might seem bizarre to us, they filled a psychological and spiritual role that was essential to families and communities alike, a reminder that medieval life was as much about unseen metaphysical labor as it was about physical toil. Professions in entertainment also intersected with craft and artistry. Mask makers crafted elaborate facial coverings for festivals, pageants, and ceremonies, transforming faces into gods, demons, or heroes. Their work demanded artistic vision, technical skill, and knowledge of symbolic language, for a poorly made mask could disrupt ceremonies, offend nobles, or confuse audiences. Each mask became both art and tool, a fusion of creativity and functional ritual that defined cultural expression. The bell founder, in a similar vein, shaped bronze into instruments that resonated across towns and valleys, marking time, summoning citizens, and signaling warnings. Their labor required technical expertise, patience, and intuition. Each bell carried both sound and significance, embedding the efforts of craftsmen into the daily consciousness of an entire population. Even roles related to animals were specialized and vital. Dog whippers, patrolling streets to control strays, and rat catchers, using ferrets and traps to protect grain and prevent disease, managed dangers that could disrupt both health and commerce. These professions demanded agility, knowledge of animal behavior, and strategic thinking, illustrating the constant interplay between humans, nature, and society. Life in towns and villages remained rich with sensory and social experience. Meals, whether simple pottage for a laborer or spiced pies for a merchant, reflected both necessity and cultural identity. Festivals marked cycles of the year, blending food, music, games, and ritual, allowing artisans, performers, and tradespeople to showcase their skills. Every celebration was a convergence of labor, creativity, and community, a living demonstration of the interdependence that characterized medieval society. Even the mundane contained artistry and ingenuity. Leather workers, tanners, and textile dyers transformed raw materials into durable, functional, and sometimes beautiful goods, their expertise a blend of chemistry, craftsmanship, and intuition. Similarly, almanac sellers guided communities with predictions, advice, and knowledge, their parchments blending science, superstition, and practicality, helping people navigate a world dominated by uncertainty. As night fell, the town's activities slowed but never ceased entirely. Shadows moved through workshops, markets, and streets, carrying out tasks whose importance might be invisible yet whose absence would unravel daily life. The Middle Ages were a world where every profession, no matter how strange, grisly, or delicate, carried significance, weaving together survival, culture, and social cohesion. Each vanished role, gong farmers, cupbearers, sin eaters, mask makers, and countless others, represented a thread in the intricate tapestry of human civilization, a reminder that labor, skill, and ingenuity have always shaped the rhythm of life, even in ways we rarely recognize today. As the night deepened and the town's lanterns flickered against timbered walls, the life of medieval streets continued in ways both visible and hidden, a symphony of labor, ritual, and survival that most modern eyes would scarcely recognize. The chimney sweep, climbing narrow flues coated in soot and ash, moved silently yet indispensably through homes and halls, their presence often only noticed when smoke cleared and warmth returned. Apprentices watched and learned, understanding that every misstep could lead to injury, and that mastery of their craft required not just strength but precision and intuition, the subtle feel of a flue, the right angle to dislodge soot, and the quiet judgment of when to move or pause. In parallel, the penny gaff operator entertained small audiences with improvised performances, songs, and acrobatics, blending entertainment with subtle moral or political lessons. These performers moved through alleys, taverns, and markets, their acts ephemeral yet impactful, transmitting stories and cultural norms in a world where literacy was rare, and oral tradition preserved both knowledge and intrigue. The streets also held dog whippers, whose vigilant patrol ensured that stray dogs did not disrupt markets, chase children, or cause chaos. Armed with long sticks and whips, they navigated crowded spaces, often coordinating with constables, yet sometimes relying on instinct alone. Their work, dangerous and unpredictable, intersected with public safety, commerce, and social order, highlighting how even seemingly simple roles carried substantial influence. Meanwhile, specialized domestic roles flourished behind the walls of wealthier homes. Pillow fluffers and bed testers ensured that rest and sleep met standards of comfort and hygiene, preparing households for noble visitors or daily function. Their work demanded attention to detail, an understanding of materials, and knowledge of human comfort, reflecting how even rest was mediated by skill and labor. Similarly, cupbearers, whose vigilance against poisoning shaped the safety of the elite, moved through chambers with quiet authority, blending loyalty, observation, and social awareness. In markets, almanac sellers guided communities with predictions, astrological advice, and agricultural knowledge, blending science, superstition, and practical guidance. Their parchments informed planting, traveling, and even social decisions, embedding them deeply in the rhythm of everyday life. Likewise, salt watchers monitored production and transport, ensuring that one of the most critical commodities reached its destination safely, influencing trade, sustenance, and economic stability. Entertainment and ritual intertwined in professions such as mask makers and bell founders. Masks, crafted for festivals and pageants, transformed faces into gods, demons, and heroes, their symbolism deeply ingrained in culture and community identity. Bells echoed through towns and valleys, marking time, summoning citizens, and signaling danger, each strike a fusion of artistry, craftsmanship, and practical necessity. Some roles demanded unique interaction with the unseen or spiritual world. Sin eaters absorbed moral burdens of the dying, walking the delicate line between taboo and necessity, while almoners distributed charity, balancing social cohesion with moral duty, ensuring that community bonds and survival coexisted in fragile equilibrium. Even mundane roles like washwomen carried significance, maintaining hygiene and clothing across households and guilds, blending physical labor with intricate knowledge of materials, cleaning agents, and techniques that prevented disease and preserved status. Throughout these intertwined lives, ordinary people lived, celebrated, and endured. Meals ranged from simple porridges to elaborate pies, flavored with herbs and spices that connected households to distant trade routes. Festivals brought music, dance, and performances into the streets, where artisans, performers, and laborers showcased skill, creativity, and ingenuity, weaving social cohesion with enjoyment. Children played with carved toys, shadow puppets, or improvised games, learning coordination, cooperation, and imagination in a world where entertainment and education were inseparable. Even small details reflected skill and artistry. Leather dressers, tanners, and textile dyers transformed raw hides and fibers into clothing, shoes, armor, and decorative items. Each step, soaking, stretching, dyeing, stitching, required knowledge and precision. Similarly, herb gatherers collected plants for medicine, cooking, and ritual, navigating fields, forests, and meadows with a combination of observation, intuition, and physical endurance, ensuring that both nourishment and health were maintained. As the town settled into night, the labor of these vanished professions, the Gong farmers, cupbearers, chimney sweeps, mask makers, sin eaters, dog whippers, and countless others, remained the hidden framework of life. Their stories, though nearly forgotten, echo the complexity, ingenuity, and resilience of human societies, a world where survival, culture, ritual, and creativity intertwine seamlessly, teaching us that even the most obscure labor leaves lasting imprint on the human experience. As midnight approached and lanterns flickered in narrow windows, the medieval town, though quieter, remained alive with the rhythm of hidden labor and subtle activity, a network of professions that shaped survival, society, and culture in ways both tangible and almost invisible. Consider the town crier, whose voice carried proclamations, rumors, and urgent news across streets and squares. Even in the dead of night, messages of danger, market openings, or noble decrees could be spread, their words influencing behavior, commerce, and communal awareness. The crier's voice became a living thread connecting disparate households and tradespeople, ensuring that knowledge traveled faster than disease, rumor, or misfortune. Meanwhile, the chimney sweep continued their perilous work, navigating narrow flues and darkened passageways with skill and intuition, their soot-streaked bodies evidence of the essential labor that preserved warmth, safety, and comfort. Apprentices shadowed their masters, learning techniques that combined physical endurance with observation, timing, and care. A misstep could mean injury, yet each cleared chimney allowed fires to burn safely, sustenance to be cooked, and homes to be warmed, highlighting the vital role of these overlooked professions. Even more unusual roles shaped the town's existence. Fletchers, who created arrows and other projectile weapons, balanced technical skill with an understanding of physics, wood selection, and community defense. Their work was critical for hunting, warfare, and protection, intertwining craft, survival, and strategy. Similarly, bell ringers, who scaled towers to perform their duties, synchronized time and ritual for townsfolk, marking not only hours but the rhythm of festivals, prayers, and emergencies, their labor linking sound, society, and shared consciousness. In quieter corners, the herb gatherer moved through fields and forests with care, identifying plants for medicinal, culinary, and ceremonial use. The risks were not trivial. Misidentification could lead to illness, economic loss, or social disgrace. Yet their knowledge preserved health, flavor, and tradition, showing how specialized labor could sustain both physical and cultural well-being. Meanwhile, street life flourished with a variety of performers and tradespeople. Mummers, masked and costumed, entertained with stories, dances, and satire, preserving oral history and community knowledge while delighting and instructing audiences. Their work was ephemeral yet influential, combining artistry, ritual, and subtle social commentary in ways that transcended mere amusement. Similarly, hawkers and peddlers navigated crowded streets, selling goods from textiles to spices, their charisma and negotiation skills bridging commerce, social connection, and survival. Even domestic tasks concealed layers of expertise. Pillow fluffers, bed testers, and washwomen maintained hygiene, comfort, and order within households, their labor physically demanding yet intimately connected to health, status, and daily routine. Meanwhile, the cupbearers' vigilance in noble households ensured safety and security, blending service with intelligence, observation, and subtle influence over the most powerful figures. Other roles intertwined labor with superstition and ritual. Sin-eaters absorbed guilt and misfortune from the dying, walking a delicate line between taboo and necessity. Almoners distributed charity, balancing moral duty with practical support for the needy, ensuring social cohesion while preserving the moral and religious ideals of the community. Even rat catchers, armed with ferrets and traps, maintained public health and protected vital resources, their presence critical during times of plague, famine, or grain scarcity. Food, festivity, and domestic life intertwined seamlessly with these professions. Markets overflowed with produce, baked goods, and meats. Festival days featured music, dance, games, and performances that engaged multiple trades, from bakers and brewers to costume makers, carpenters, and performers. Children played with carved toys, wooden balls, or shadow puppets, learning coordination, cooperation, and creativity, while adults engaged in negotiation, craft, and social networking, all within the complex ecosystem of medieval life. Even seemingly minor trades carried deep significance. Leather dressers, tanners, and textile dyers transformed raw hides and fibers into durable, functional, and decorative goods, their expertise blending chemistry, artistry, and practical knowledge. Almanac sellers guided planting, travel, and community decisions with astrological and practical advice, weaving superstition and science into everyday life. Every role, no matter how obscure or vanished today, contributed to a delicate equilibrium of survival, artistry, and culture. And as the town settled under the moon, the echoes of these vanished professions, the Gong farmers, chimney sweeps, dog whippers, sin eaters, mummers, and countless others, reminded anyone listening that the medieval world thrived on interdependence, hidden skill, and human ingenuity. Even in darkness, the pulse of life persisted, an intricate and fragile network of labor, ritual, and culture whose imprint resonates in ways we can still imagine, if only we listen closely to the quiet rhythm of the past. As the first hints of dawn brushed the horizon with pale light, the town slowly shifted once more, and the subtle, intricate patterns of medieval labor, craft, and survival persisted even as most residents slept or prepared for the day ahead. In hidden corners, the Gong farmers completed their nocturnal tasks, carrying waste away from homes and streets with care and discretion, their work an invisible backbone of hygiene that prevented disease and preserved the fragile balance of urban life. Apprentices learned not just the mechanics but the rhythm of their work, understanding timing, route planning, and the delicate social navigation required to avoid shame or conflict. Meanwhile, wealthier households prepared for the day with the assistance of pages of chambers and cupbearers, whose roles extended beyond menial service. Pages delivered messages, carried keys, and observed courtly interactions, absorbing lessons in etiquette, diplomacy, and strategy, while cupbearers remained vigilant, watching for threats to the household's safety, combining loyalty with acute observation in a world where subtle missteps could be catastrophic. In streets and markets, hawkers and peddlers began to stir, their voices carrying wares and announcements over cobblestones as they prepared to engage with townsfolk. They sold spices, textiles, trinkets, and sometimes rare curiosities, navigating crowds with skill, charm, and intuition. Their knowledge of human behavior and commerce allowed them to survive in an environment both competitive and unpredictable, where bargaining was an art and reputation a currency as valuable as coins. Even the most seemingly trivial roles carried significance. Water carriers, balancing heavy barrels upstairs and across alleys, provided essential sustenance for households, workshops, and inns, ensuring that kitchens could function, fires could be stoked, and daily life continued. Similarly, rat catchers, armed with trained ferrets, nets, and traps, protected vital grain stores, preventing disease and safeguarding livelihoods. Their work was physically demanding and often dangerous, yet critical in a society constantly threatened by plagues and scarcity. Entertainment blended seamlessly with survival and ritual. Mummers performed in town squares and alleys, wearing masks, enacting dances and short dramas, preserving oral history, local gossip, and morality tales in ways that entertained while teaching lessons. Street musicians, jugglers, and acrobats drew crowds, transforming mundane streets into stages where skill, humor, and social commentary intertwined. Their performances were ephemeral yet influential, shaping culture and community cohesion without leaving tangible records for historians to follow. Even domestic labor demanded expertise. Washwomen processed garments, linens, and household fabrics with painstaking care, using herbal mixtures, mechanical ingenuity, and timing to remove stains, preserve texture, and maintain hygiene. Pillow fluffers and bed testers ensured comfort and readiness in noble households, blending precision, physical labor, and an understanding of status and expectation. Their work, though invisible to most, was essential to the rhythm and function of domestic life. Meanwhile, artisanal and craft roles were equally vital. Leather dressers, tanners, and textile dyers transformed raw materials into clothing, shoes, armor, and decorative items, each step requiring skill, patience, and chemical understanding. Similarly, herb gatherers collected plants for medicine, cooking, and ritual, traversing forests, fields, and marshes with an expert eye, ensuring the community could access nourishment, healing, and spiritual support. Even ceremonial and esoteric professions carried social weight. Sin eaters walked the line between taboo and necessity, absorbing guilt and misfortune for the dying, while almoners distributed charity, balancing morality with practical support to maintain social cohesion. Bell ringers announced time, celebrations, or danger, linking sound to daily structure and communal awareness, while mask makers produced items that transformed faces and identities for festivals, rituals, and pageantry, blending artistry with cultural symbolism. And as the sun finally rose, spilling light across cobblestones and timbered walls, the town awoke fully, each profession, from the mundane to the bizarre, intertwined in a complex web of survival, artistry, ritual, and culture. Meals were prepared, bread baked, fires stoked, tools sharpened, and music played. Markets bustled, children ran, and artisans honed their crafts. Every task, no matter how small or obscure, contributed to the rhythm of life, shaping a world where survival depended on ingenuity, cooperation, and the tireless efforts of trades that no longer exist. In this living tapestry, the echoes of Gong farmers, chimney sweeps, dog whippers, cupbearers, sin eaters, and countless other vanished professions remind us that even hidden labor and seemingly odd tasks leave lasting impressions, forming the structure, culture, and pulse of society. Medieval life was a mosaic of necessity, creativity, and resilience, a world where every role, no matter how fleeting or forgotten, carried meaning and impact that extended far beyond the immediate task. As the morning unfolded and the town stirred with activity, the streets and workshops revealed layers of labor, craft, and survival that modern eyes rarely perceive. The mudlark, wading along the riverbanks, searched for lost coins, pottery shards, and other discarded treasures that could be sold for a few pence or traded for essential goods. Their work demanded patience, dexterity, and a deep understanding of tides, currents, and seasonal changes, as well as knowledge of what might hold value and what was mere debris. Often overlooked, mudlarks connected the natural and human worlds, transforming waste into sustenance and scarcity into opportunity. Meanwhile, Gong farmers and their apprentices completed the last of their nightly tasks, hauling refuse through narrow alleys and disposing of it with care, invisible yet essential to public health. Their work, physically exhausting and socially stigmatized, prevented disease, maintained sanitation, and allowed the visible life of the town to continue unimpeded. The silent choreography of their labor was a reminder that medieval survival often depended on roles hidden in shadow, unseen but indispensable. In wealthier households, pages moved with discreet precision, delivering messages, managing keys, and observing the intricate dance of status and etiquette. Their position, while ostensibly subordinate, allowed them to learn lessons in diplomacy, strategy, and social navigation, preparing some for eventual roles of authority. Similarly, cupbearers maintained vigilance over drinks and dining rituals, a subtle but powerful responsibility in a society where danger could be served in a goblet of wine. Street life thrived with variety. Hawkers and peddlers maneuvered through crowds, calling out their wares with persuasive skill, blending commerce with performance. From textiles to trinkets, spices to small livestock, their survival depended on charisma, quick thinking, and knowledge of human behavior. Nearby, mummers and street performers entertained, masked and costumed, delivering short dramas, dances, and moral tales that preserved oral history, transmitted gossip, and influenced social norms. Their acts were ephemeral yet deeply embedded in community memory, connecting past, present, and imagination. Even domestic labor was complex and essential. Washwomen processed mountains of laundry, employing herbal treatments, specialized techniques, and mechanical ingenuity to remove stains, preserve fabrics, and maintain hygiene. Pillow fluffers and bed testers prepared noble households for rest, blending precision, physical effort, and awareness of status and comfort. Every small action carried significance, from the feel of a mattress to the cleanliness of linens, contributing to health, social order, and daily rhythm. Artisanal roles intertwined with survival and beauty. Leather dressers, tanners, and textile dyers transformed raw hides and fibers into clothing, armor, shoes, and decorative items, each requiring specialized knowledge and careful technique. Likewise, herb gatherers navigated fields, forests, and marshes to collect plants for medicine, cooking, and rituals, their work ensuring sustenance, healing, and spiritual connection. Professions with ceremonial or esoteric aspects added further complexity. Sin eaters absorbed the moral burdens of the dying, walking the line between taboo and necessity. Almoners distributed charity, preserving both morality and social cohesion. Bell ringers marked time, celebrations, and emergencies, while mask makers transformed identities for festivals, pageants, and rituals, blending artistry with symbolism. Each role, no matter how obscure, wove together survival, culture, and tradition. Markets overflowed with activity. Bakers prepared bread, butchers hung meat for drying, and taverns offered ale and pottage, sometimes flavored with herbs or honey. Festivals brought the town together, combining music, dance, games, and ceremonial spectacle. Artisans, performers, and tradespeople all contributed, their labor creating both utility and delight, showing how work, play, and ritual existed in a seamless continuum. As noon approached, the town thrummed with interconnected life. Children played, apprentices labored, performers entertained, and artisans crafted. Every profession, from the mundane to the extraordinary, the Gong farmers, chimney sweeps, dog whippers, mudlarks, and sin-eaters, was essential to survival, culture, and cohesion. Even hidden or bizarre labor shaped the pulse of the community, leaving traces that ripple through history, reminding us that medieval life was not only about struggle but about skill, ingenuity, and the complex interplay of countless human endeavors. As the sun climbed higher and the town streets bustled with energy, the intertwined lives of medieval citizens unfolded like a living mosaic, each profession, ordinary or obscure, threaded into the rhythm of survival, culture, and communal identity. Consider the rat catcher, who moved through attics, cellars, and barns armed with ferrets, traps, and keen observation. Their work prevented disease, protected grain stores, and maintained public health, yet it required not only physical agility but also an almost intuitive understanding of animal behavior. The rat catcher's expertise exemplified how specialized knowledge transformed danger into sustenance and stability, ensuring that life could continue in often perilous conditions. Meanwhile, dog whippers patrolled the streets, managing stray dogs that threatened markets, children, and daily routines. They carried long sticks or whips, acting as a visible deterrent and a social enforcer, blending authority with practical skill. Their presence, though seemingly minor, helped maintain order in bustling urban spaces, revealing how even the smallest professions influenced the safety and rhythm of community life. Inside wealthier homes, pages and cupbearers orchestrated the invisible mechanisms of household management and security. Pages learned the subtleties of etiquette, observation, and strategy, while cupbearers safeguarded noble patrons against poison and deceit. Their labor was a quiet force, a blend of service, vigilance, and social acumen that shaped the well-being and survival of the elite, illustrating the invisible hands that guided the delicate balance of medieval power and comfort. Even the streets themselves were theaters of entertainment and commerce. Mummers performed masked plays, dances, and dramas, blending storytelling, satire, and social critique into performances that educated as much as they entertained. Hawkers and peddlers moved with skill and charm, selling spices, textiles, trinkets, and curiosities, their success dependent on persuasion, negotiation, and an acute awareness of human desire. Markets became a living classroom of commerce, culture, and communication, where every participant, from artisan to customer, played a role in sustaining the flow of town life. Artisan crafts intertwined with necessity and beauty. Leather dressers, tanners, and textile dyers transformed raw materials into clothing, armor, and decorative items, their work requiring patience, chemical knowledge, and dexterity. Herb gatherers collected medicinal and culinary plants, navigating forests, fields, and wetlands, their labor preserving health, flavor, and ritual practices. Even roles that seem whimsical today, like mask makers or bell founders, carried immense cultural weight, shaping festivals, pageants, and communal awareness through artistry and sound. Domestic labor was equally vital. Washwomen processed linens, clothing, and household fabrics with expertise in herbal treatments and techniques that preserved hygiene and comfort. Pillow fluffers and bed testers prepared noble beds, blending physical effort with precision and knowledge of materials. Every task, no matter how small, sustained daily life. reinforcing a rhythm that allowed society to function efficiently. Meanwhile, ceremonial and spiritual labor threaded through society. Sin eaters absorbed guilt and misfortune from the dying, while almoners distributed aid, balancing moral duty with practical support to maintain social cohesion. Chapels' bell ringers orchestrated soundscapes that marked time, events, and emergencies, guiding townsfolk in rhythm with both daily and spiritual life. Throughout all this, ordinary citizens lived, ate, celebrated, and endured. Meals ranged from simple porridges and bread to roasted meats, pies, and delicacies flavored with herbs, honey, and imported spices. Festivals brought music, dancing, games, and performances, blending skill, entertainment, and ritual into shared experience. Children played with wooden toys, marbles, or shadow puppets, learning cooperation, dexterity, and creativity. Adults negotiated, crafted, and performed, all within the interconnected web of labor, culture, and survival. By mid-afternoon, the pulse of the town revealed the delicate interdependence of vanished professions. Gong farmers, chimney sweeps, dog whippers, mudlarks, mummers, cupbearers, sin eaters, and countless others sustained life, culture, and communal harmony. Their work, often hidden or forgotten, demonstrates how every role, no matter how unusual or obscure, was integral to the flow of society, a living reminder that medieval life was a tapestry woven from the labor, skill, and ingenuity of countless hands, minds, and hearts. As the afternoon sun waned, casting long shadows over cobblestone streets and timbered buildings, the town revealed yet more layers of labor, ritual, and survival, where professions long vanished from memory quietly sustained daily life. The mudlark continued to patrol the riverbanks, combing through silt and debris with a practiced eye for coins, lost metalwork, and valuable shards. Their work, at once humble and necessary, required patience, ingenuity, and an intimate knowledge of the river's moods. In times of scarcity, a single discovery could feed a family or provide trade goods, highlighting how survival often depended on ingenuity in the most overlooked corners of medieval life. Meanwhile, the chimney sweep, soot-streaked and nimble, climbed narrow flues to clear ash and soot, ensuring that homes remained warm and safe. Apprentices watched closely, absorbing techniques that combined endurance, tactile skill, and spatial awareness, for one misstep could result in serious injury. Each cleared chimney allowed families to cook, heat, and live without risk, transforming what might seem a menial or unpleasant job into a linchpin of domestic stability. In wealthier households, the cupbearer maintained vigilance over dining rituals, safeguarding patrons against poison and deception. This role required discretion, intelligence, and observation, blending service with subtle influence. Pages, moving through corridors with messages and keys, absorbed lessons in etiquette, strategy, and household dynamics, preparing for roles that could eventually grant them authority and insight beyond their years. Street life offered a different kind of expertise. Hawkers and peddlers navigated crowded markets, calling out wares from spices and textiles to trinkets and curiosities, employing charm, persuasion, and intuition. Nearby, mummers performed masked dances and dramas, transmitting moral tales, gossip, and cultural knowledge in ways that entertained while instructing. Their ephemeral performances left lasting impressions on audiences, shaping social consciousness without written record. Other roles, less visible yet equally crucial, connected humans with nature and survival. Rat catchers patrolled barns, attics, and cellars, deploying ferrets, nets, and traps to safeguard food stores and prevent disease. Dog whippers managed strays, protecting children, commerce, and public order with long sticks or whips, their vigilance maintaining balance in urban spaces. Even herb gatherers moved through forests and fields, identifying plants for medicine, cooking, and ritual, their knowledge preserving health, flavor, and spiritual practice. Domestic labor intertwined with artistry and precision. Washwomen cleaned garments and linens with herbal treatments and specialized methods, maintaining hygiene and household order. Pillow fluffers and bed testers ensured noble homes provided comfort and readiness, a subtle but vital component of domestic life. Artisans, too, shaped the tangible world. Leather dressers, tanners, and textile dyers transformed raw hides and fibers into functional and decorative goods, while mask makers created ceremonial items that conveyed identity, myth, and social meaning during festivals and pageants. Spiritual and ceremonial roles underscored the society's complex structure. Sin eaters absorbed the guilt and misfortune of the dying, balancing social taboo with communal necessity. Almoners distributed charity, ensuring that moral duty intersected with practical support, sustaining social cohesion. Bell ringers coordinated time, warnings, and ritual signals, embedding sound into the daily consciousness of townsfolk, marking events and emergencies with authority and regularity. Meanwhile, ordinary life unfolded alongside these hidden labors. Meals ranged from simple porridges and bread to roasted meats and pies, often seasoned with herbs and spices from faraway lands. Festivals celebrated seasons and patron saints, blending music, dance, ceremonial spectacle, and communal games, where artisans, performers, and laborers all contributed their skill and creativity. Children played with wooden toys, marbles, and shadow puppets, learning coordination, imagination, and social rules, while adults negotiated, crafted, and managed complex networks of trade and obligation. As evening approached, the town's pulse revealed the intricate interdependence of all roles: gong farmers, chimney sweeps, dog whippers, mudlarks, cupbearers, sin eaters, mummers, and countless others. Each task, however obscure or hidden, contributed to survival, culture, and communal harmony, reminding us that medieval life was a vast, living tapestry of labor, skill, and ingenuity, where even the most unusual or forgotten professions left lasting impressions on society, shaping daily rhythms, safety, and human connection in ways that resonate across centuries. As twilight descended and lanterns flickered along narrow streets, the town's rhythm shifted once again, revealing the unseen web of labor, craft, and ritual that sustained medieval life. Among the less visible yet essential roles were the gong farmers, who moved silently through alleys and privies, hauling waste under cover of darkness, their work crucial to sanitation and public health. Apprentices learned not only technique but also the timing and discretion required to navigate social stigma, ensuring that life above ground remained uninterrupted and the community could thrive without illness spreading through the streets. Elsewhere, chimney sweeps climbed flues blackened with soot, their hands and faces streaked with evidence of labor that warmed homes, allowed cooking, and kept families safe from smoke or fire. Their movements were precise and practiced, a dance of endurance and intuition where each step could prevent disaster. Apprentices, watching silently, absorbed not only technique but rhythm, balance, and the subtle signals of structure and airflow, learning to transform danger into necessity. In noble households, cupbearers maintained vigilance over drinks, ensuring safety against poisoning and deceit, blending service with intelligence, observation, and subtle influence. Pages navigated corridors, delivering messages, carrying keys, and observing social interactions, absorbing lessons in etiquette, strategy, and diplomacy that prepared them for future roles of responsibility or authority. Their seemingly minor tasks were in fact critical to the smooth operation of wealth and power, forming an invisible backbone to daily life. The streets and markets were alive with movement and sound. Hawkers and peddlers called out wares ranging from spices and textiles to trinkets and curiosities, relying on persuasion, quick wit, and knowledge of human desire to survive in competitive environments. Nearby, mummers performed mass dramas, dances, and satire, blending entertainment with moral lessons and social commentary, ensuring that oral tradition and local knowledge passed from one generation to the next. Their performances were fleeting yet left lasting impressions on audiences, shaping culture and communal identity without written records. Other professions connected life to both nature and survival. Rat catchers patrolled barns, attics, and cellars, protecting food supplies and public health with trained ferrets, traps, and keen observation. Dog whippers maintained public order, managing stray or aggressive animals, their vigilance preserving safety in markets, streets, and households. Herb gatherers moved through forests, meadows, and marshes, collecting plants for medicine, cooking, and ritual, their knowledge essential to health, flavor, and spiritual practices. Artisan and craft labor combined utility and beauty. Leather dressers, tanners, and textile dyers transformed raw hides and fibers into clothing, shoes, armor, and decorative goods, requiring skill, patience, and expertise. Mask makers created ceremonial items for pageants and festivals, shaping identities, myths, and social meaning. Even bell founders embedded their craft into daily consciousness, producing bells that marked time, celebration, and emergencies, their sound woven into the heartbeat of the community. Domestic labor, though often hidden, remained vital. Washwomen scrubbed clothing and linens using herbal mixtures and specialized techniques, maintaining hygiene and household function. Pillow fluffers and bed testers ensured comfort and readiness for noble homes, their subtle labor a linchpin of domestic well-being. Each task, however small, contributed to daily rhythm, social hierarchy, and communal stability, reinforcing the invisible systems that allowed society to function. Meanwhile, ceremonial and spiritual roles enriched life with ritual and meaning. Sin-eaters absorbed guilt and misfortune from the dying, while almoners distributed charity, balancing moral duty with practical support to sustain social cohesion. Festivals, music, and communal celebrations brought townsfolk together, blending entertainment, artistry, and ritual into a seamless expression of culture. Children played with wooden toys, marbles, or shadow puppets, learning coordination, creativity, and social interaction, while adults negotiated, crafted, and performed within a complex web of interdependent roles. As night returned, the town's heartbeat persisted. Each role, Gong farmers, chimney sweeps, dog whippers, mudlarks, cupbearers, sin-eaters, mummers, and countless others, sustaining life, culture, and order. These vanished professions, often hidden or overlooked, illustrate that medieval society depended not only on visible labor but on countless subtle, specialized, and essential roles that shaped the rhythm, survival, and artistry of everyday life, leaving traces of human ingenuity that continue to fascinate centuries later. As the night deepened and moonlight spilled over the rooftops, the town seemed to hold its breath, yet the hidden currents of labor, craft, and ritual never ceased, weaving together a world both ordinary and extraordinary. The mudlark continued their search along riverbanks and docks, sifting through mud and debris for coins, metal fragments, and discarded items that could be sold or traded. Their work required patience, keen observation, and an understanding of tides and seasonal shifts, transforming forgotten remnants into sustenance or livelihood. Even a single coin or valuable shard could feed a family or enable trade, showing how survival often depended on ingenuity in the most overlooked corners of medieval life. Simultaneously, the chimney sweep, soot-covered and agile, ascended narrow flues to remove soot and ash, protecting homes from fire and ensuring warmth for families. Apprentices learned not only the techniques but also the rhythm, timing, and intuition necessary to work safely in such confined spaces. Each cleared chimney allowed families to cook, heat, and live without hazard, transforming a grimy, physically taxing job into a vital contribution to domestic stability. In noble households, cupbearers vigilantly watched over beverages, guarding against poison and subtle threats. Their service required acute perception, intelligence, and discretion, blending loyalty with influence in spaces where missteps could be fatal. Pages moved quietly through corridors, delivering messages, carrying keys, and observing courtly interactions. These tasks, seemingly minor, prepared them for future authority, teaching diplomacy, etiquette, and strategic observation in a controlled environment where each action could ripple outward in impact. Outside, hawkers and peddlers navigated bustling streets, calling out wares from spices and fabrics to trinkets and rare curiosities. They relied on charm, negotiation, and a sharp sense of human desire, thriving in a competitive marketplace where survival depended on quick thinking and adaptability. Meanwhile, mummers performed masked dances and short dramas, blending entertainment with moral lessons, gossip, and cultural transmission. Their ephemeral art shaped community memory, social norms, and local culture, leaving impressions that were felt far beyond the brief performance. Other professions connected survival to natural forces. Rat catchers moved through attics, barns, and cellars, deploying ferrets, traps, and observation to safeguard food supplies and health. Dog whippers patrolled streets, controlling stray or aggressive animals to protect children, markets, and communal order. Herb gatherers collected plants for medicine, cuisine, and ritual, navigating landscapes with knowledge of flora, toxicity, and utility, ensuring the health, flavor, and spiritual practices of the community. Artisans blended utility with creativity. Leather dressers, tanners, and textile dyers transformed raw hides and fibers into garments, armor, and decorative items. Their work required patience, chemical insight, and dexterity. Mask makers and bell founders produced items that guided ritual, ceremony, and identity, shaping soundscapes, pageantry, and social awareness. Even small domestic roles contributed to societal rhythm. Washwomen preserved hygiene and clothing, while pillow fluffers and bed testers ensured comfort and readiness in noble households. Spiritual and ceremonial roles maintained communal balance. Sin eaters absorbed the guilt of the dying, walking the fine line between taboo and necessity, while almoners distributed aid, ensuring moral duty met practical need. Festivals and communal celebrations fused music, dance, and ritual into collective experience, where artisans, performers, and laborers contributed both function and joy. Children learned through play, wooden toys, marbles, and shadow puppets cultivated creativity, coordination, and social skills, while adults navigated complex networks of commerce, craft, and negotiation. As midnight fell once more, the town's pulse revealed the interdependence of all roles: gong farmers, chimney sweeps, dog whippers, mudlarks, cupbearers, sin eaters, mummers, and countless others. These vanished professions, often overlooked or forgotten, exemplify the intricate web of labor, skill, and culture that sustained medieval society. Each task, no matter how obscure, left an imprint on daily life, survival, and communal identity, a reminder that history is shaped as much by hidden hands as by the grand gestures recorded in chronicles. As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, the town slowly stirred, revealing the intricate tapestry of medieval life, where each profession, no matter how obscure, wove itself into the rhythm of survival, culture, and daily experience. The Gong farmers moved with practiced stealth through alleys and privies, hauling waste to ensure that homes and streets remained habitable, a quiet labor essential to public health and sanitation. Their work, though stigmatized, formed the hidden backbone of urban life, connecting households, markets, and workshops in a web of cleanliness that allowed the visible world above to function unhindered. Nearby, chimney sweeps climbed narrow flues with soot-streaked hands and faces, clearing ash to prevent fires and maintain warmth. Apprentices observed carefully, absorbing technique, timing, and spatial intuition, knowing that one misstep could result in injury. Each sweep enabled families to cook, heat, and live safely, demonstrating how even the grimiest, most dangerous jobs were essential threads in the fabric of daily survival. In noble homes, cupbearers maintained vigilance over beverages, ensuring patrons were safe from poisoning, their perception and discretion critical in a world where subtle threats could prove fatal. Pages, carrying messages and keys, observed and learned the nuances of etiquette, diplomacy, and strategy, their small actions preparing them for future roles of responsibility. The delicate balance of service and observation in these roles influenced not only household function but also the subtle power dynamics of medieval society. Streets and markets buzzed with activity. Hawkers and peddlers moved among the crowd, calling wares from spices and textiles to trinkets and rare curiosities, relying on charisma, negotiation, and keen understanding of human behavior. Mummers performed masked dramas, dances, and storytelling, weaving moral lessons, gossip, and culture into ephemeral spectacles that entertained and instructed. These performances, though temporary, shaped communal memory and norms, highlighting how art and labor were inseparable in the town's social fabric. Other professions bridged survival and nature. Rat catchers patrolled attics, barns, and cellars, deploying ferrets and traps to protect food supplies and public health. Dog whippers controlled stray or aggressive animals, maintaining order in streets, markets, and public spaces. Herb gatherers moved through forests, meadows, and marshes, identifying plants for medicine, cooking, and ritual, their knowledge essential to health, flavor, and spiritual practice. Artisans contributed both utility and beauty. Leather dressers, tanners, and textile dyers transformed raw hides and fibers into clothing, armor, shoes, and decorative goods, each requiring patience, chemical insight, and craftsmanship. Mask makers and bell founders produced ceremonial and practical items, shaping pageantry, ritual, and soundscapes that guided the town's rhythm. Domestic roles remained crucial. Washwomen preserved hygiene and household order, while pillow fluffers and bed testers ensured comfort and readiness in noble households. Spiritual and ceremonial labor maintained communal balance. Sin-eaters absorbed guilt and misfortune from the dying, navigating taboo and necessity, while almoners distributed charity, balancing morality and practical aid. Festivals and communal events blended music, dance, games, and ritual, where artisans, performers, and laborers contributed function, entertainment, and meaning. Children played with wooden toys, marbles, and shadow puppets, developing coordination, imagination, and social understanding, while adults navigated networks of craft, trade, and negotiation that sustained survival and culture. As morning gave way to afternoon, the pulse of the town revealed the interdependence of all roles: gong farmers, chimney sweeps, dog whippers, mudlarks, cupbearers, sin-eaters, mummers, and countless others. These vanished professions, though often overlooked, sustained survival, culture, and communal harmony, leaving traces that ripple through time. Every task, however hidden or obscure, contributed to the rhythm, artistry, and ingenuity of medieval life, a living reminder that history is woven not only by grand gestures but also by countless hands working tirelessly behind the scenes.